Well, it is 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I'd like to call the meeting to order and turn it over to Amy, who will do the welcome and roll call. Amy, the ball's in your court.
Wonderful, I will take it. Good. Do you have, make sure, do we have, I welcome everyone on Zoom as well. We do have a few members who are on Zoom. So welcome everyone with our Sales Tax Oversight Committee. I will begin with the roll and we'll start with Greta Campbell.
Present.
Yeah. Harlan Parrish?
Here.
All right, very good. Welcome. We hear you loud and clear. Jose Santos, who is absent today. We got John Shannon, absent. Sia Sherman also, I know, was absent. She mentioned to us a trip that she was on this time. Stephen Shipp.
Yes?
All right. Christopher Semino.
Present.
Thank you. Frederick Atkins.
Here.
Bobby D'Alessandro.
Who's on?
Here. Awesome. Thank you. We got you. Fred Elliott. And absent. Joe Mazurkowitz.
Here.
All right. Gotcha. Joseph Mitchell.
Here.
Very good. Cole Peacock.
Present.
Thank you. And Mr. Matthew Ropesdorf.
Here.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
We have a quorum.
We do. Thank you.
We can conduct business. Good. I don't have to send you all home and disappoint you. So, I would like to call for an approval of the prior meeting minutes that were mailed out to you about 10 days ago on email. Are there any questions? And if there are no questions about them, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I think Joe Mazurkowitz was quicker than
Yeah.
Fred Atkins,
Yeah.
so he's the second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Appreciate that. At this time in our meeting, we open up the floor to public comments. Are there any members of the public present that would like to make comment? And I would like to remind you, if you plan on it, we hope that you're able to limit that to 3 minutes. Anyone here? Thank you very much. There's no public comment. And now for the chair update. Before we get too far along, I'd like to introduce a newcomer to us, but not a newcomer to the district, Sarah Cox. Sarah, would you mind standing? So Sarah tells me she's been with the Lee District for 17 years. She went over to Henry and has been in charge of their finances. I can't remember the title, but their chief financial officer is close enough, for a period of 3 years, and is rejoining the district as the executive director of business services, replacing Susan Millay. Internally, I think people are really happy that she's come back here. She has all the talents it takes for that job, and she'll be picking up the oversight of the ISSOC. So this is her first meeting. She will not be highly participative in this meeting, but will be replacing Amy in being our liaison to the district in the future. So, Sarah, we welcome you and thank you very much for taking us on. We promise not to be too big a problem to you. The second item under my update would be our presentations. I'm pleased to report that there have been 10 presentations in total to public organizations, Rotary clubs, chambers, Horizon Council, that kind of thing. Thanks to all of you. I could tell the full board that there have been 6 different people have done those presentations as well. And that's, number one, I appreciate that because I've done a few of them. And number two, that's stepping out in a broader fashion to the community. So I encourage those of you who have not done them to make yourself available if you're predisposed, and those who are doing them, thanks. We've had 10 times, and to date feedback has been good. Any questions on that?
Steve, to your point, I mean, I know you've done them, I've done them, I think Harlan's done one.
when you do them and you see the response in the community and the questions that are asked and the genuine engagement, it really helps you understand even how much more important it is that we're sitting here today, you know, with the funds that are coming in and the dollars that are coming in and the impact it's having in the district. I mean, if you haven't done it, just do it from that perspective, just to see the response of the audience you're talking to. Some of them are, you know, newly educated on it, and some of them have been around long enough to understand what it is. But I found it to be very, very impressive, and really had a good time doing it.
Yeah, and as a presenter, my experience has been that you get a few oddball questions, but none that can't be.
Yeah.
Can't,
Well, the staff is always there to help you, so that's always good.
there to help you. You always can simply say, well, I don't know, but I'll have somebody get back to you. But generally, the feedback, the questions have been good questions, and the feedback you get's positive.
It is. I agree.
If you've not done it, do it if you can. It's kind of neat. So, and it's something that our board can do as citizens that the district cannot do for itself. If that were happening with people employed by the district, I think it would not have the impact that it's had so far. So, third, at the end of the year, the people whose terms will be coming up for renewal are Greta, Harlan, Jose, John Shannon, Chia Sherman, myself, and Chris Semino. Did I pronounce that correctly, Chris?
Close enough.
I always tell people,
called
with
worse.
a last name like Schimpf, I really don't care what I do here. I'd like to ask any of those whose names I read, are you willing to continue to serve? Because if so, we will be, the district administrative people would contact the board member who nominated you and say, they're willing to serve, would you renominate them? And we'd like to put you back in. Greta?
Yes.
Not here.
I'm here.
Yeah?
I said
Yeah?
yes.
Yes, you would
Yes.
be willing to? Good. You need to keep track of these, Sarah. Harlan,
Yes, sir.
you would be willing to serve?
Yes, sir.
You're making my day. Jose? Not present, right? Okay. John Shannon?
Not present.
Not present. Chia? She's not here. I'm going to step back. I have something going on in my life that's going to be a challenge, and I've got to start to back out of some things. And then, Chris, would you be willing to continue?
Yes.
That'd be great. So, and as a second, so we have 4 slots to fill. I plan on pulling together an email to each of the board and say to them, you know, I've served for a number of years, I'm going to step back. My experience has been good. It's something that people can do from the private sector to help the district, and encourage our board members to reach out to people that they know that they perceive as qualified to stick their hat in the ring and do a little bit of solicitation on behalf of filling this board. It has been worthwhile. Obviously, we're highly paid people, and we receive all kinds of thanks. But you know, neither one of them happened. But you feel like you're doing something really worthwhile. And and I'm also in that email going to offer to a member that if a board member has somebody who would like to speak with someone who has served about their experience, feel free to have them call me. Would anyone else like to be on along with me as a potential reference where a person from the community could pick up the phone? And Joe, you'd be willing to do that?
Yes, sir.
Good.
I'd be willing to do it too.
Okay, and Fred?
I would be willing to do it.
I think you're
All right.
And Bobby.
Good. And that'll be, and Bobby?
Bobby and Ha.
Did you get Greta?
Okay. You know, you may get a call from somebody who says, how is it? You know,
Will and I will.
if I were asked to serve, one of my questions would be, how do the meetings go? Are they well-run? And are you spending a lot of wasted time or not? That's a key question for
Yeah.
me. So I think if we could make ourselves available to board members to help them, that'd be worth doing. So, good, thank you. That concludes my report. I'm not going to give any of you an opportunity to ask the chair a question because I might not know the answer. Let's move on to the board member update. Jada, you're on the hook. Boy, is there anything update from the board-wise for our group?
I don't have any updates right now. We have our meeting next week unless Dr. Desimore has something I might have missed. I don't mean to put her on the spot, but we really don't have any updates since the last meeting. Riverdale's underway. And we have a big meeting coming up next Thursday.
We're pleased to have you as the liaison.
Yes,
This is, we thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
It's a little bit above and beyond, so. The review of the sales tax funded project. Scott, do you want to kick it off?
Good evening, board members. Thank you for being here. This is your update for this quarter. We have 2 sheets. I won't read every single item because I believe you all have the handout. In a nutshell, we have 4 traffic projects, traffic studies. That's to help alleviate the traffic congestion, working with our local law enforcement, get them off our surface streets. 4 HVAC renovation projects, 2 plumbing renovation projects. 2 new construction projects are underway, 2 roof projects are underway, and 2 campus remodel and renovations are underway that are being supported by the ISSOC tax revenue. So in general, I just want to make one note. Gateway Elementary, we actually moved into the construction phase, even though it's shown on the design sheet. That's underway. We've got the parking lot torn up and hope to have it open for start of school August 1st. So that's going forward. As you're well aware, we just received a substantial completion for another project, which is, well, it's not part of tax revenue, but it would be G. Weaver Hips. So I'll just give you a little knowledge on that. That got substantial and approved. And we're preparing for a July 1st for Franklin Parks Elementary in the community center to be substantially complete and CO'd to start that operation. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of media coverage on that. A lot of roofing projects going on, coming through here on the sheets, and we have a lot of work. Obviously, these are just the tax-supported projects. There's a whole nother capital set of projects that we do out of my department. Any questions?
The impact of the new student assignment policy on traffic, because so many parents are driving their kids to school now.
Mm-hmm.
How significant has that been, and has there been any significant dollars set aside or increased because of that?
I can't speak to whether it's had an impact. I can tell you COVID impacted the parent delivery of students to schools and the transportation system. Hence, every school was realizing cars backed up onto surface streets. If you live in Cape Coral and go by any of those schools, it's unbelievable. It's gotten better. We have a program. We work with safety and security. We work with our civil engineers on continuing contract. We come up with draft proposals. We run it by all of the various departments, and we engage. And we're typically doing about 2 schools every summer. We try to get in and do it. The next 2 are going to be Harns Marsh Middle and Elementary and Trafalgar Middle and Elementary to try and help resolve some of those, but we try to do 2 per year.
I live next door to Trafalgar Elementary and Middle, so I feel that pain daily.
I know. So we are working on it. We're cognizant of it. I hope that student assignment can help alleviate some of that. I just don't know the answer to that.
Scott, have we had any projects funded by sales tax, major projects that have not opened when they were projected to open?
Not as of this date, no.
Okay, so if we were doing a presentation to the community and reported that, in fact, the district was managing the projects with the funds that we have to, and they've hit their opening dates, that statement could be made, right?
Correct. There's only been certain issues where I've issued a partial final. That's long lead items right now. We have you'll see me coming before the board on many of the future projects in the phase 1, including funds in for generators, fire pumps, switch gear, chillers. Some of these things are over 60 months of procurement. So if you can do the quick math, I issue a contract, we start, the material just isn't available anymore, and we're all competing for it. So That's been a problem, but with our construction managers, that's part of our jobs as a team, to see these things and use the resources and try to circumvent that so that, look, the kids are coming. They have to come. And we've never had a school not load children on opening day throughout the district. And I don't want to be the first one either.
Right.
Scott, just a question here. So you may or may not know, I was, myself and a few others were asked to serve under the previous administration, a logistics and traffic busing routing committee to help kind of figure out logistics of that. And then currently with the existing new interim administration, that committee has met. I'm assuming you're sharing all this with your logistics teams?
I have not, sir. I have a construction advisory committee where we talk about it. I receive the reports from the community, whether coming to the front office or to board members. Oops, sorry. We then put it on a list. We bring it to the capital committee. We evaluate, we judge, we score the projects, and we try to fund at least 2 per year. But in terms of the number of students on buses, whether the proximity plan has changed anything or is benefiting that, I'm not part of that, sir.
Yeah, those were all the topics we were talking about. Proximity, the change in the schools, traffics, inflow, outflow, bus schedules, departures, all those things. Okay, well, I don't know if it's appropriate to share that, but I think that would be something with that crew, that would be a great benefit to them to be on the same wavelength of what you're doing, what they're trying to do.
Absolutely, I'm sure you've been heard.
Any other questions for Scott?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Are we saying that we are spending $108 million of sales tax money on the Riverdale remodel?
It's being funded by the sales tax. Whether it's being paid in full, I'll leave that to the finance people to answer, or whether they're getting a COPS and paying back the loan amount with that money.
No, Riverdale has been a pay as we go, and at this point in time, yes, it is the plan for the entirety of the cost to be funded through sales tax. However, in the formulation of the final total capital plan for this year, it may be different, but at this point, that is the intent.
And through the renovation of the campus, that's a lot of money. Are we adding student spaces at Riverdale in the renovation? And how many student spaces are we adding?
No, there's no addition. What we're doing is there are 14 portables out there. The seats that were in the portables are being relocated into new seats created with hard structures. And in terms of the cost, you're going to find that I think by 2030, 40% of the district schools will have become at an age where you have to make a decision. Right now, active campus renovation is more expensive per square foot than new build.
That's the case with almost all construction, isn't it?
Yes, sir. I've seen the market. I think I told you, or at least the board members, maybe about 2 years ago, construction has gone up anywhere from 30 to 40% on the large ticket items. No one expected this. You know, I was building high schools for 45 million, elementary for 28, and middle schools for 35. Now the middle schools are over 100 million, elementaries are stroking 80 to 90, and high schools by 2030 are probably going to be around $200 million.
So I just want to clarify, we're spending $108 million on Riverdale, but not adding any new seats.
That is correct.
And for those on the committee, in the first year, do you remember the woman came before the committee and said Riverdale has nothing?
Yep.
Sure do remember that. We referred her to the district administrative long planning people to go to them and express her. She sat right over here and said, I want you
in
guys
year
to
one,
approve
we
that as a project.
We said nothing at Riverdale, and now year 4, we said $108 million at
Right.
Riverdale. I didn't know that we weren't adding any seats on, that's almost a year's worth of revenue in a single school.
We're taking temporary seats and making them permanent.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then understand too that school, we evaluated it. The architectural and structural design team felt that the bones of the school were still good. We did bring the state out, DOE, to do a custodial review of the school, and they concurred. There was one building out there that didn't meet the age requirement, a concretable. We had to leave that. Similarly, we had to leave one building at Franklin Parks. These buildings have aged out. All the plumbing systems underground are rotted. and that's many schools that are part of the projects that I'm listing to you that we're attacking. They've reached their age. HVAC systems, 20, 30 years old, underground plumbing rotting, cafeterias not large enough for the student population. I think if you were to go to student assignment, Riverdale was probably around a 1,900 student station school, the original design. Now I believe they're at over 2,300. So, you know, we don't want kids in portables long term. That's not a good productive learning environment. We created a new science building. The gymnasium, they had a lack of a gymnasium because we support sporting events there. So we've built a new gymnasium sized appropriately for the population. And the existing interior gymnasium was used as a multipurpose room, which several of the high schools are doing now for their testing requirements with the state. And they use it as multipurpose. So there's many ways to skin the cat. I think, you know, 109, we started out when we knew when the cabinet picked that design D, which was the new gym and the science wing and the added parking. We knew it was going to come in around 110. So I think we value engineered it down as much as we can. The parking alone, it was a safety issue at that school. You had many students that were parking across the street at a quasi-abandoned strip mall. Cars were backed up around onto 82, many with children in it. We've gotten all of that. We've redesigned the entire front, doubled up on parking spaces to get the kids out of harm's way, to provide the community that input and stacking on site out off of Buckingham and 82. So I think it's been a very productive job, and I think when everyone sees it, I think they're going to be pretty pleased, and the legacy of Riverdale will live on.
There were two key numbers in all of that too, and that's that it was designed for 1,900 students, but the district was educating 2,200, which means that you're putting 2,200 kids in a school that was designed for 1,900 30 years ago. How old is that school?
And
That's got to be it's older than 40 years.
It's 40 years old. And if you look at Lehigh Senior High School, same thing. I think they're at 2,600 kids, and I don't know the exact number of what we keep growing and we don't have enough seats, and the argument could be made, well, why didn't we demo Riverdale? Well, a construction project is a 4 to 5 year project. By the time you find the property, develop the property, 20 months to build a school. What do you do with 2,300 kids?
Kids, yeah.
Portables, that's about 100 portables. Right now, a 35 to 40 portable setup is about 10 million bucks. That's what it's costing me at Cypress for that middle school to house those kids during that demolition to build at that school. So nothing's free anymore. It's painful, but you know, we're going to have to come to a point where you understand the renovations of existing schools where the skeleton and the structure is still good. It's going to be costly, but what other option do you have?
Kudos to the woman for showing up and getting attention at Riverdale High School.
She did well.
She did really well.
I remember that night. I remember that night.
She did $108 million.
She was a volunteer cheer coach. Make quite an impact.
That's funny, that's good.
Any other questions? Thank you.
That's it. Have a good night,
Appreciate
everybody.
it,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is Dave Newland on security.
Yeah.
Dave's going to come up here and tell us that he can't tell us anything because it's all confidential.
Well, good evening, everybody. Dave Newland, Safety Security Executive Director. Last time I came to you, I know that one of the big projects we were working on, trying to complete, the goal was, by the end of the school year, was to make sure open gate weapon systems were in every school in Lee County, every entry point, and they were in full activation. The good news is I have to bring in front of you that job, that goal, that project has been completed. So every school that we have has open gate weapon systems in every entry point where kids and students and parents and the public come in every day. Obviously, as I mentioned, as we look at this system, we maintain some supplies to make sure the system is working outside the warranty as a permanent project. So we have a storage of extra systems, we have a storage of extra batteries, chargers beyond the year of warranty. In fact, some of the extra wands that we had anticipated maybe using, I'll be shipping those back to the company to trade those in for more batteries. So we will have extra systems on standby if we have need for additional schools, locations, other entry points. But that's the good news. Obviously, we'll continue to look at, maintain training, look at any weak areas as we move forward to make sure that these are being staffed properly and that the training is maintained as staff and the public come into our schools every day. Obviously, in the future, I'm always looking at new safety items to bring to our schools that make sense As I mentioned before, layers of security. I'm looking at a few things right now that I'm hoping to bring in front of you at some point in the future. But any questions about the weapon system or anything else I can answer?
Well, I have a question. Now, is this building secure, have a weapon system?
This building does have a weapon system. Eventually, one of our goals is to have it working all the time. In other words, when the building's open, the idea is to have a weapon detection system on or active the whole time. But that's one of the things we're working on right now, is be able to have it properly staffed. This building, too, we have more than one entry point that the public come into. So that's a conversation we have had and been having. We want to work on in the future as well.
Okay, because I just noticed, I didn't think I saw one when I came in here. It's not a weapon. I didn't have to go through anything.
Yeah, so right now, some of our, we have for certain, our board meetings, things like that, but obviously that's the goal. We want to do is to have it on the full time, all of our points. Yes, sir.
So with this being complete, doing things, are y'all also looking at like first floor exterior entry points, windows, hardening of the building and those kind of things?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, there are several other projects I'm working on right now, doing my homework on, because anything I look at, as I mentioned before, it's got to make sense. It's got to fit with our current safety needs. You want to make sure they all work together. So yeah, absolutely. So my goal is that I'm working on right now is a few things like that you're mentioning that depending on once I get, when I come in front of you, I want to make sure that I have all my homework done, answer all your questions and what those needs are and costs and so forth. But that's what I'm working on right now, yes.
So do y'all got to combine the required hardening for safety of students also with the hardening of storm at the same time?
Yes, in a way, yes. I mean, we have storms. There is a grant that the state that we went through that can apply to certain things that we're going through right now, HMGP, that can apply to like storm shutters, for example. Yep. That's one thing you can look at that can meet the requirement for storms, but also can meet a security need as well. So you can look at it that way as well, yes. So, there are different avenues we can take as we look for other funding sources possibly.
So in the time the system's been up, have you detected anything?
We have had some things. I think the good news is the feedback we're getting from the students, from staff, and from parents of what we're not finding. And one of the things one of the goals was we want to be able to measure after a full year in process or in procedure as this has been put forward. What does that look like compared to the previous year? So are we getting less issues or incidents of weapons on campus, obviously, or even down to vaping, possibly. Right. So those are all things that data we're looking at comparison as schools have had these in full use, how that's, how it has an effect on the school. And I can tell you that the schools I have talked to, again, different staff, parents, and students, they have seen it make a difference.
So it could detect vape?
It has a possibility. Anything that is not allowed on campus, it can detect. Absolutely. Okay.
So just because I have a student at Fort Myers High who tells me there's 25 or 30 or 40 entry points to Fort Myers, how did you secure that?
So that's some of the schools, as I mentioned before, when we approach this project, we look at schools that have less degree of difficulty, those that have medium degree and a high degree. The ones that have high degree, like Fort Myers High School, because they have so many different outer buildings, those are the campuses that we walked. One of the goals was if we can, is you want to be able to control pedestrian traffic, student traffic, by consolidating entry points if you can. So a school may have that use of, over the years, we have maybe 7 entries of where kids can come in at. You don't have to have it that way. If you can consolidate. It's always better. We need to control the traffic, not let the traffic control us. So by controlling the traffic, we can consolidate those areas to have them go to the areas that we want them to walk to. So by doing that, we've added more, for example, ornamental fencing, controlled the outer walkway areas. So it's not, it's open to the point where we can't control certain things because of the buildings, but we can designate those areas more secured.
So they have done that there?
Yes, and that will be completely done with all the things that we've added to by in the summer, apparently. So those are some of the bigger projects we had to look at, and really at the very beginning of the year, last year, to make sure we achieve some of those areas, weak points.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Newland, can you update this group about where we're at with just what you can share about where we're at with the Guardian program going into the following year?
The Guardian Program, just so all of you know, what the Guardian Program is, after what happened, the Stoneman Douglas shooting back in 2018, the state had come down and said at one point and said, okay, every school must have a person, either a police officer, a guardian, a security guard, to stop the active assailant at every school. And that is a mandatory requirement. Every school in Florida must have that. Well, with some areas in Florida, in rural areas, they don't have the luxury we have here. We have a great relationship with law enforcement here. So for us, we were able to put law enforcement in all of our schools. Some schools have 2, based on the the size of the school plus the enrollment of students that go to that specific school as well. But the Guardian Program was designed that you can either hire from the outside, you can designate employees that are trained, and this is a sheriff's office program, must be approved by the sheriff. The grant that comes from the state funds the cost of the Guardian Program. So we started a Guardian Program last year as a force multiplier to our current SROs in our schools. The Guardians that we have, they train with the school resource officers. They do the same, go through the training, a very harsh training, much more than the minimum state requirement. So I can tell you that this is our second year. We have a group going through right now that will be starting the training July 1st. So it'll be our second year. They'll be adding to the current group of guardians. I don't want to say how many we have for safety and security reasons, but I can tell you that they are placed in our schools to work with the SROs as a force multiplier. Their priority of a guardian is to stop the active assailant. That's their job. But they do train with the school resource officers, and I can tell you those that make it through the training program, it's a harsh program, but they make it, they are prepared. Yes, ma'am.
Does that training include psychological evaluations?
Part of the background process that is required, that's included in part of the background process as well. And I can tell you that there's a minimum requirement of hours that the sheriff's office goes well beyond that. Just because they want to make sure that they've covered areas beyond the minimum requirement, and that they have to feel comfortable that they are prepared as well as we are.
So my concern would be, obviously, that they can assist if there is an attack outside, but also that our students are safe inside, and there is no reason that they might, because I know police officers have psychological evaluations, and there are times when they don't make the best decisions. They're humans.
One of the important things that happen too is, and that's a good question, so we make sure they go through psychological backgrounds. That's why we make sure they train over the beyond required hours with the state, with the sheriff's office. That's why we make sure they train with our school resource officers, Lee County Sheriff's offices, and not only the initial training, but ongoing training throughout the year that must be maintained. That is a requirement. The other thing too, with the new House bill that came out this year in 1473, the states added new requirements to the Guardian Program we must maintain with the state as far as reporting measures of those guardians that are guardians, their background. Those get reported to Florida Department of Law Enforcement. There are quarterly reports, so we are maintaining to keep a stricter, accountability of those guardians and to make sure they complete that training that must be recorded and reported to the state.
So a long-term view on this. If you've been in Florida long enough to know, the political pendulum swings every 10 to 12, 20 years. So whatever party's in control has their issues they want to put in. If you get an opposing party in control and this goes away, are the schools still going to be at the same safety level?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Your current party in control pushed the issue to get to these programs that are in the schools today. If you have a party that's not the same, and they were to go back and change legislation, would the schools still have the same safety levels, or are y'all depending heavily on this, or is this just a secondary?
Well, I'll put it this way. I mentioned the House Bill 1473. They came out with strict requirements this year. The things that they came out with that we had to maintain, we were already doing. Because it's not about meeting the minimum requirement, it's about best practices. We don't want to follow, we want to lead, because we want to be one of the safest and best school districts in Florida. And that's what we're trying to achieve. So whether they change something to say, we don't need to do this anymore, so go ahead and pull that away, our push is still, we want to make sure that our students feel safe, that parents know that their kids are safe, and our staff feel safe. And I believe in order to concentrate on your education, you have to feel safe in the school.
Yeah.
You have to. So regardless of what happens we know we have to be able to forecast what's happened nationwide and prepare for it here ahead of time.
Dave, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Good to see you again.
That's fair.
Next is Patrick.
That's fair.
Patrick?
Good evening.
Right?
How is everybody tonight?
Fair.
I wanted to come and update you on about 15 different projects we had related to security and ISSOC funding over the last quarter. Some slides up there. So first to review, we have some access and access control and intrusion detection. A lot of this is kind of the last of the buildings required in a project for us to get us onto the same system. So we're kind of excited to not have to work in those dual environments anymore and be able to secure things more efficiently and easily make exceptions, all that kind of good stuff now that we're on one full dedicated system. So it's kind of nice to see all the last of these implementations go. About 915K this last quarter with all of those locations getting some updates. Any questions on that one? And the next slide is our camera upgrades. We do have a few cameras we installed close to 5-6 years ago where we have end of life on those, some issues with some of the density and warranties and serviceability. So we have entered into a project now that we're hitting summer. We'll pick this up a little bit more, but these are the locations that we've already started to look at and have completed over the last quarter and updated those cameras.
I would have been in all kind of trouble.
Any questions?
Thank God they weren't there.
Questions?
I'm glad they weren't.
That's pretty easy, 2 simple slides.
Yeah, they're pretty easy slides, you're right. There's not a lot of questions on what's going on when it comes to intrusion,
We
security,
might need
and
to
seeing the
transfer
kids in
you to
action.
a department where it's tougher to.
I know.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Chris Stryber, the last report of the staff.
Good evening. I'm Danielle Jensen. I'm one of the coordinators in maintenance. Chris Duber's back here. He's going to make sure I don't mess up, but I'm going to be presenting for us, okay?
The last word is don't mess up, right?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. We've got this, So we would like to present the maintenance projects that were funded with the sales tax dollars this year. We have started a total of 81 projects that range from simple projects like blinds, paving, and painting, but to more complicated projects like bathroom renovations, roof replacements, and HVAC upgrades. We reported 45 projects have been started at the March meeting. The maintenance team pushed for year end, and we were able to add an additional 36 projects for a total of 81 projects that we have got on the board for this year. Some projects, like your roofing and HVAC projects, take longer to start because of schedules and the design process to get the quotes in place. Then we were also able to jump on some smaller projects like fire alarm updates and flooring upgrades. Some of the examples that I wanted to show to the right are works of our more recent vertical specs that we have put in place for flooring and cabinetry. These specs were driven by durability needs as well as the ease of replacement since we service over 100 facilities. The funds we have allowed us to focus on key envelope projects like the roofing and HVAC projects, but also address some of the aesthetic needs of the schools as well as address some safety concerns when we could do projects like flooring, paving, and windows. The next slide, yeah, thanks. Okay, so we've used $41.6 million in sales tax funds this year. Half of those dollars were allocated to our bathroom and HVAC upgrades, as well as flooring and window replacements. We have identified and started another $18.3 million in projects since the March meeting. Those incremental projects are primarily in windows, flooring, plumbing, and chiller projects. And then the next one. So what we wanted to show is basically the number of projects by school type. So as you can see, there are 37 projects for the elementary, there are 24 projects for our middle school, 15 projects are allocated to the high school, and then we have 5 projects for our special centers. And what you can see is that the number of projects, the percentage of the projects correlate to the percentage of school type. So we wanted to make sure that we were spreading the projects fairly and across the different school types, but addressing all of the needs. So the maintenance team has been very busy on these projects. Some have already been completed. Some are going to be completed over the summer, which is a very busy time, and some will take throughout next year, depending on when certain items come in, like some of your HVAC equipment or those kinds of things. So, are there any questions? We're very proud of what we got done this year. A lot of work.
That's a lot, it is.
Yes.
You are spending a good amount of money on capital maintenance. Are we catching up? Or are we starting to come in line with the life expectancies of these capital maintenance projects to where we will actually be able to budget for them in the future instead of using sales tax money for it?
Well, I think that would be very challenging. As you know, we have 100 facilities. A lot of them are very old. Out of this 81, we still also did an addition, including the 81, we're doing 230 projects this year. So that is just a percentage of that. And that does not include all the day-to-day smaller type projects that we're doing. So I don't know if I'm in a position to say, I think it would be challenging to continue to do all the
See us
needs.
being able to catch up within the 10-year life expectancy of the first round on sales tax with capital maintenance?
Not without any additional funding. I think it would be a challenge.
That's good to know. This is not something that we're going to be able to fix in the first 10 years. This is something that's going to be a reoccurring, ongoing number that we're going to have to deal with a revenue stream. And if it's not sales tax, then we're going to have to find out another revenue stream to fix it. So that's, going forward, we need to know that.
I think that's a fair statement. I mean, there is a lot of work that's been identified, and we are addressing as we can be, but I do not think that it will be completed by, was it 28, 29? Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
You did well.
Thank you. I did good. Thank you.
Matt Acosta on the budget, revenue, collections, and projections report. Matt? How are you, Matt?
Good evening, committee.
Good evening.
Matt Acosta, Business Services Coordinator. I'm going to go briefly over the financials. So our first slide here is the FY24 estimated capital revenue, 398.1 million, and you'll see of that 32% is from sales tax. It was estimated to be from sales tax of 126 million, and this reflects the new revenue that was estimated for FY24. And this slide will show you your the FY24 sales tax budget, 280 million, including carryover. You'll see there's a little bit of difference from the last time we looked at this. Construction has grown to 56% of the budget, and this is reflecting money that was moved, about 37 million, to the Riverdale remodel, to VPAA remodel, as well as VPA Lemuel Teal Black Box Theater, about 14 million for that. So you see that's taken up some of our reserves, as well as some of the capital maintenance budget moved over to cover for those things. Our next slide is the monthly sales tax collections year over year by month earned. This is looking at FY23 and FY24. And you'll see that we're actually tracking very closely to what we had for FY23. The only difference being the first month, which was including a $4 million discretionary payment that was earned in FY23, but recorded in FY24. And just kind of hold that thought in your head as we look at these next slides. So you see for this one, we have inception to date, what has been collected, which is about 540 million. We projected up to this point 499 million. So about 8% over what has been projected has been collected. For the year though, we projected to have 104 million at this point in June, and we've received 103 million, or about 1% under what we've projected, which I think is about the first time since before COVID that we've been under our projection, which is potentially indicating that we are slowing down on some of our collections. If we were to remove that 4 million discretionary, it would be at negative 3%. And our last slide is the revenue tracking projected to actual. So we were projected originally 126 million. At this point, we are at 103. It's estimated we will be probably have around 120 million or 21 million more to come in between the May, June, and June discretionary So with that 4 million, it will probably be around 124 million collected for FY24. Taking out that 4 million, you would look at 120 collected for the year. And we are projecting that there will not be any growth for the new year. So we are leaving it at 120 million for FY25. Any questions?
Yes. Have you had any conversations with the Department of Revenue as to why it's flat? Is that a statewide issue? Is that a county issue? Or?
We're looking at just their estimates, and that's one of the things that we look at when we do our revenue estimating, the EDR, Economic and Demographic Research. Some of the things that they're citing in their general revenue estimating conference is the diminishing impact of Hurricane Ian recovery, as well as consumers dealing with increased debt and managing personal budget constraints in an environment of higher prices. So those are some of the things that they're citing for just the uncertainty. They're actually projecting it to be negative for next year, a little less than 1% negative for FY24. I think we've always kind of been a little bit above their estimate, so we're keeping it flat. And then slowly in the next couple years growing about 1%, 2%. But that's well below what they've estimated previously, so they're kind of holding back on optimism there.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we've had folks roll forward a motion to approve the financial report and then also the projects report, and I'd entertain a motion. We could handle them separately, would probably be the best way. Is there a motion? Yeah. Guys, if we don't do something about it.
Harlan, good, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm listening.
I'll second it.
Is that for the?
Is there any discussion? Was that for
to
the?
approve the sales tax financials as presented.
That was the financials as presented that you moved, and the second
That's what Harlan
was?
was talking about, I know. I can read his mind.
Are there any comments regarding the motion? And the hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That was the financials only, right, Chris?
Right.
That was the sales tax financials as presented, sir.
Okay, and I'd like to have an approval for the projects presentation.
I'll move the projects as presented.
Second.
You had 2 seconds. You can choose one. One was Fred. I heard that one. Any comments or discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now I'd like to open it. Go ahead. Okay, I'd like to open the floor now for any comments from members of the committee. You lodged all your complaints during the reports from staff, right?
It's your time, you gotta get on.
Very good. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, I have to do one thing down the bottom. Next meeting is September the 19th. Fred, depending on my home situation.
That would be my comment. Will you be here?
Yeah, I likely will not be here. We have plans, given what I got going on at home, you're familiar with it. Assuming all continues to go well, we will be out of town.
Okay.
If that changes, I'll be in town, I'll let you know, but otherwise, if you would plan on sharing, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
And then the next meeting after that is December 5th, so if you all would check your calendars for September 19th and December 5th as to whether you have the calendar of those meetings. Very good. That being said, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Right, I tell you.
50 on the dot. 50 on the dot.